Welcome on in, Eagles fans, to episode 39 of our Philadelphia Eagles podcast right here on NJ.com, the No Huddle Show. I'm Joe Giglio, joined as always by Elliot Stewart-Parks and Mark Eckel. On this episode, we're going to dive into how to improve the Eagles in the future, really a little short term, but really the long term too, how to improve the outlook of this team that Bovada just came out with the over-under. It's not pretty for 2016. They've set themselves up with a quarterback of the future, but there's still some more work to do. So we'll get the plan from Elliot, from Mark on this show about how to improve the long-term outlook of the Eagles. And I have a feeling we're going to touch on two popular names to talk about their short-term and long-term futures with the Eagles and how the team could position themselves better for when Carson Wentz is ready to take over as starting quarterback. And we'll debate about it. Elliot, how you doing, bud?
Doing good. Looking forward to making the Eagles a playoff team again.
Well, I think they need some help there, so we'll try to do that. Mark, how are you?
I'm great.
You know, the Eagles right now, they're probably not great. You know, I think their future with Carson Wentz is looking up compared to where it was a couple weeks ago. But if you go by the over-unders or just what people think of them, they're not a team that I think we look at and say, they're going to win 10 games, no doubt about it. They have some work to do. So let's get into it. Elliot, we'll start with you, then we'll go to Mark, and I'll throw out some ideas too. What's a couple things you would do, whether it be outside the organization or just, decisions they can make within the team to improve what you think they look like right now?
I'll start with one that I'm sure everybody is expecting. But the first one I would do is I would trade or cut Sam Bradford. That would be my first go-to move. I just think, especially after watching the last two practices have been open to the media, I think Carson Wentz is going to be ready to play. I think he looked better than Bradford did in the last practice. I don't think learning the playbooks can be an issue for him. And I really think having Bradford on the roster is just holding this team back. If you win 10 games with him next year, what does it really mean? If you don't, what was the point of playing him anyway? I think it's going to be a distraction. We've exhausted the Bradford discussion to death, really, but that would be my first move. If I became Howie Roseman today, my first move would just tell Sam Bradford he's going to get his wish and he's not going to be on the roster.
Yeah, I think that's one that everyone's probably thinking about. Do you think there's a date, like a point of no return where I'm sure they're probably hoping, and not hoping is the right word, but they're waiting to see if, there's an injury to another quarterback in camp and they could find a spot for Bradford possibly. Do you think there's a point where, do you think there's a date where if they would go with your plan, they would do it, and then if they won't go with your plan, then he'll be here? Like, do you think there's a point where they're not going to cut him if we get to August, whatever? Like, you see what I'm trying to say?
I don't think they want to get rid of him. So I don't think there is a date. Look, if the team like maybe the Miami Dolphins or somebody,
That's the team I always.
Yeah, exactly. That's your team you always use, right? So if a team like I don't know, like if a team out there loses their quarterback, calls Eagles, and just simply blows them out of the water, like maybe the Arizona Cardinals or something like that, then I think the Eagles will consider it. And I think the reason why is because at that point they'll have seen 3 weeks of Carson Wentz in training camp. They will have seen him all summer. They will have seen him in presumably preseason games. So then I think you could see them, maybe the Eagles more open to moving him. But I don't think this is an instance where the Eagles didn't like the Eagles were willing to move him, but the Broncos offer wasn't good enough. I think that was part of it, but I think the Eagles want to keep Sam Bradford. So putting a date on it, I don't really think there is one. I think that unless they're blown away by an offer, they do not want to move Sam Bradford.
Yeah, I don't think the date is in stone. I think it's more the offer. And what's the difference with it? I think the date is the trade deadline. Whenever the trade, I could see them moving him if the right offer comes 2 weeks into the season. I'll use my example, the Miami Dolphins. If Ryan Tannehill gets knocked out for the season in week 2, I don't know who the Dolphins play week 2, but he gets knocked out for the season, and the Dolphins call the Eagles that Monday and say, hey, what would it take to get Bradford? I think the Eagles are all ears at that point, and why not? I'm not so sure they don't want to move him like Elliot says. I don't think they don't want to give him away, but they have. See, this is when we get to my plan. I don't think the way the Eagles are thinking, right? My thoughts on this team are probably the exact opposite of Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie and whoever else, Doug Peterson, I guess, what their thoughts are. So I have a hard time trying to think like they do because I just don't agree with anything they've done, and I don't. We'll see who's right. Maybe they're right and I'm wrong, but we'll find out soon enough.
For this particular part of the plan, because I think probably all three of us have something on the quarterback, let's all throw it out there at once. So, Elliot, you say cut or trade Sam Bradford and start Carson Wentz, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That would definitely be what I would do.
All right. From my perspective on the quarterback, I would at least, for right now, make Sam Bradford earn the job. Because I think at some point here, it's going to get awkward and messy if he's being outperformed by either Daniel or Wentz in training camp. And because the players know. I mean, and I think it's a farce if he doesn't have to earn the job if he's not the best quarterback. Mark?
So you would be okay with the situation of him sitting on the bench healthy in week 1?
Yeah. If he's not the best quarterback, I don't care about his feelings. And if he wants to pout and go home, he could do that. Or he could do whatever he wants.
No, wait a minute. Whoa. You can't. You can't have $18 million of quarterback sitting on the bench.
I think why? I think they will at some point this year, Mark.
Well, that's insane. That's absolutely.
Well, if he's hurt.
That's why this organization is so inept. You can't have $18 million or more than that, really, sitting on the. That's crazy.
But I think at some point this year, even if it doesn't happen at a training camp, like if my plan doesn't come to fruition and they just do what they want to do, I think by November, Wentz is the quarterback. Like that's the way I've seen it the whole time. So at some point, we're heading down that path. At least I see it that way.
And my counter to my
that's why you got to get rid of him.
Advocate.
You get rid of him before it happens.
I agree with that. The only thing I'll say to support Joe is they got to pay him that money no matter what. I mean,
but they don't have to look at him.
Well, I'm saying whether he's on the field or on the bench, they have to give him that money. So I think to force him on the field.
What do you mean? If they trade him to Miami, Miami's paying him the rest of the money.
Right. But as much as we're both talking about we would trade him, the chances of them trading him at this point. I mean, we talked about this at the OTA practice. What team is going to be in such a situation where in week 2 or the third week of training camp, they need a quarterback, think they can win now, and then decide Sam Bradford is the guy for them? Like I can't imagine
because he might be the only guy. I mean, no one else is looking to. I mean, I don't think there's another. What other veteran quarterback is on the market right now that you could get?
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
I guess what I'm saying is.
Yeah. Okay. For now.
Who did you say?
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
For now, yeah.
Yeah. For now.
That's true.
Okay.
But the counter would be Sam Bradford's going to have to come in and learn that offense. I mean, and he's never even won before anyway. I don't know. I mean. I think the chances of being traded are very, very slim.
Well, then he's here.
Right.
But
I agree.
I'm just following your plan. You start the plan by saying trade Sam Bradford. I said bravo.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm just saying to Joe, I'm surprised Joe, if given the option, would keep him on the roster. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, no, I don't think I would. I just don't think it's realistic. So
if Wentz beats him out in preseason, which – they might not let Wentz beat him out in preseason. Mm-hmm. Let's say, like you say, Joe, it's obvious that Wentz is clearly – and I'm not saying this is going to happen because Wentz still has a ways to go.
Sure.
He looks good throwing the ball against air, and he looks good. He obviously has a strong arm, all those things that we do know about him. But it's a lot different when defenses are game planning and blitzing and doing all kind of other things to you. But let's just say it's clear after watching 4 preseason games and camp and everything else that – oh man, it's not even close. Carson Wentz is definitely better than Sam Bradford. And the Eagles come to that. Okay, yeah, we're going to opening day. Cleveland Browns. Carson Wentz is starting. That's going to be a disaster. I mean, that's going to be. Wow! I hope that happens, man. That would be unbelievable. That would be a great story. But
right.
Wow.
Yeah, it would be it'd be fascinating to watch. I guess my point really was if they're going to keep Sam, if they're not going to trade him or release him. Which I tend to agree with you, Elliot. I think that it would be best for the team if they did that. But if they're going to keep him, I would at least make him earn the job. Like what we've heard the whole time is, Sam shows back up. It's his team. He's the quarterback. And I just think that's silly. Like make him earn the job. And if he wins it, whatever. He wins it.
Shouldn't that be every position?
Yeah, but it's not about the Eagles are doing,
not the quarterback. Job, right? I mean, he's probably going to because he's the best tight end on the team. But Lane Johnson should earn it. I mean, everybody should have to earn it. But you have to say somebody's your starter. Peterson came out and said Alan Barber's my starting guard. But let's be honest, if Barber's terrible in camp and the kid from Oregon State looks pretty good, guess what? The kid from Oregon State's going to beat him out, right?
You would think so. I mean, do you think that hurts any of the credibility of Peterson as a coach if he says these things and then it changes? Or is that just reality that if you get beat, you get beat, even if the coach says you're the starter?
Listen, I've seen a lot of quote unquote training camp starters lose their job. I mean, that's what came. If that was the case, you wouldn't even need all these OTAs and stuff. You just start to see, have a couple weeks of practice and start the season. I mean, is it, no, that's what camp's for backups to try to beat out starters, for guys that aren't supposed to make the team. I mean, every year there's 2 or 3 guys that we have, we don't even talk about now, but then all of a sudden come August, hey, wow, he's going to make the team. We've seen it every year. I mean, every year I've covered a team, there's been at least one, and lately more than one, surprise guy that makes the team and somebody gets cut that you didn't see it happening. I mean, that's just the nature of the business. That's what it's about. That's what competition is all about. They wouldn't have 90 guys there if they knew who the 53 were going to be.
No, they wouldn't. And that's why every summer, we go into this thing kind of with an open slate. Elliot, outside the Bradford thing, give us a couple more of your plans for the Eagles to improve here.
Okay, so the next one, if we're going to stick with just, obvious hot topic ones, I would trade Fletcher Cox. I know this is one Mark is going to disagree with me on.
Yeah, I disagree strongly.
All right. Okay, well here'll be my argument towards it. 1, I don't want to give him $60 million guaranteed. 2, I think you could get a really good first round pick for him, probably top 10-ish. And they don't have a first round pick next year. 3, I don't think this team is going to compete next year, or maybe the year after, but definitely not this year, in my opinion. And to me, having a defensive lineman that makes that much money on a team that's going to only win 4 or 5 games, like having a really good closer on a bad team, it's just like not a good use of your resources. I know you can keep him on the roster for 2 years and just see what happens. So maybe that would be another way I would go with it. But I think because they don't have a first round pick next year, I would at least explore the option of trading him.
I can't disagree more. Fletcher Cox he's 25 years old. He's not much older than the guy you're going to take in the first round next year with that pick. And you trust Howie Roseman will make a better pick with that pick than what you already have in Fletcher Cox? I don't.
But the guy you're going to take,
you can take Marcus Smith again. They got lucky with Fletcher Cox. Don't blow it now. Don't trade your best. I'm never in favor of a team trading its best player. And Fletcher Cox is their best player, and he's 25. If he's 30, we're talking different story. The Eagles, if they ever get good again, and they hope they will with Carson Wentz, right? Well, Fletcher Cox will still be an impactful player if and when the team gets good. I'm not trading him. I'll trade him for. I mean, nobody's untradeable. I mean, you give me a bunch of stuff. I mean, I'm not going. I can't say no. I mean, but for just a first round pick next year, which I don't even know where it's going to be, because you trade him to a team that you think might be bad, but now they get Fletcher Cox and they're better, and that pick that you thought was top 10 is now 22. So now what do you get?
Let me ask you this. So you don't think the Eagles are going to be good next year, right?
No,
You've been pretty clear about that,
Yeah,
right? Okay, so let's say the Cleveland Browns say they'll give you back your first round pick and their second round pick. So you go into next year, your own first round pick and two second round picks.
That's a pretty good offer. That's a pretty good offer.
Yeah, I think that's a very good offer.
But again, how do you know? All right, let me ask you this. Of the players in this past draft, who would you trade Fletcher Cox straight up for?
Okay, but here's where I think we disagree. I'm not saying that Fletcher Cox there's a very good chance in next year's draft he could end up being the best player.
Then why would you trade him?
Because I don't think he's going to be. I don't think he's such a difference maker that he's worth the $18 million a year. Whereas that rookie that I'm going to get at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever is only going to cost me $3 or $4 million a year.
You get what you pay for.
Well, not with the rookie class. The Colts had one of the best quarterbacks in the league for his first years at a rookie salary. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. But you got to, first of all, you got to get. I'm not trading my best player. Then that a team would have no good players. No, I'm not trading Fletcher Cox for. No, I'm just not. I'm not trading. I'm not trading Fletcher Cox. The money is the money. First of all, you don't have to. You have him for 2 more years at a reasonable rate. So take that money out. Take the money out of the equation right now. He's not going anywhere this year. He can't go anywhere. What's he going to do?
All right, so maybe I should rephrase. I would still explore trading him, but I agree that I would not re-sign him to a massive deal. I'll say that. Well, I would not do that.
Massive is in the eye of, depends on what you think massive is. I mean, he could get fair market value for a player of his ilk.
I wouldn't give him a deal where his salary cap hit exceeded, I don't know, $10 million,
So worried
$11
about the
million.
salary cap, but yet you gave Case Daniels $7 million. The guy
All
can't.
right, well, I disagree with that move too. But my point is,
You gave Zach
Fletcher
Ertz
Cox is a
what's he done? You gave Lane
yeah, but
Johnson. What's he done?
I think Zach Ertz could end up having a bigger impact on the team than Fletcher Cox.
Oh, you're brain dead.
Fletcher Cox, how many games did he win for them last year?
More than Zach Ertz did.
Okay, but I'm saying could be
The New Orleans game. He dominated the New Orleans game.
Yeah, and you said yourself that was his third string
Guess
player.
what game he won? That was the game. What
And
game
I
did
don't think he
Zach Ertz
won.
win?
I don't think he won that game for him. Wasn't that a shootout? If I'm not mistaken.
No, the second half, New Orleans didn't score.
Okay, well then they must have scored a bunch in the first half.
Oh.
Wasn't that the final score in the 30 something to 20 something? Regardless, my point is he's a defensive.
If you think
tackle.
Zach Ertz is better than Fletcher Cox, you're crazy.
No, I don't think Zach Ertz is better than Fletcher Cox.
And I
That's
like
not what I'm saying.
He's a good tight end.
I'm talking about purely positions here. I don't think the defensive tackle can impact the game the way a tight end can, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, look around the league. I mean, you you need a defensive line. You don't.
Okay, but
I mean, tight ends are a dime a dozen.
I mean, but I would just say if you look at the best tight ends in the league and you compare them to the teams they're on compared to the teams that the best defensive tackles are on, I mean, Kansas City, a playoff team.
Washington had the best tight end in the league last year, maybe.
Jordan Reed.
And they were a playoff. They were a playoff.
They didn't beat a team with a winning record. Green Bay blew them out.
But all right.
Tight end.
Okay, but name a team that had one of the best defensive tackles in the league.
And they won. They won their division.
All right, that's one.
Same as Washington.
All right,
and I do think JJ Watt's probably on a different level than.
Oh yeah,
he's way better than Fletcher Cox.
Let me ask this. Let me throw this point in there with the Fletcher Cox.
He's 25 years old.
I have said before that if there is a point where I think you're paying a defensive tackle too much, and how much
that's my point.
How does that impact the salary cap? I do think that's a little bit mitigated now because they'll have Carson Wentz on a rookie deal, right? So they could, in theory, pay.
Well, you still have Sam Bradford and Chase Daniel.
Well,
I'm just saying. I mean, if you're restarting your roster, I agree, but
right. But eventually they'll probably just have Wentz more on a cheap deal, and you could probably pay Cox more. When I was thinking about how to improve the Eagles and the future here of Fletcher Cox, I would almost. I don't want this thing to drag on to next year because I have a feeling if he has another big year, he's just going to, want more money going into next season. You might have to franchise tag him, and then it just gets messy. If the Eagles really want to keep him, which I would imagine they do, I would try to get it done this summer. And if they can't, then I would start thinking about maybe he's not going to be here long term, more towards your plan, Elliot. I would try to get it done and try to come up with a reasonable deal for both sides. But if he says no one wants to hold out the whole year, then I start worrying that, he's going to have a gigantic year and the contract number is going to get silly. Is there a point where he gets paid too much, Mark?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Obviously. He can't. I mean, again, we don't know what's being talked about. We're all guessing, just like we were guessing that the deal was going to get done because a lot of people thought so, including his teammates and people around him. So we don't know. We have no idea what the Eagles have offered, what their best offer has been. We have no idea what him and his agent are asking for. I'm going to say that I think both sides are being reasonable. I mean, they both see what everybody else is getting, right? I mean, I hope Fletcher isn't asking to become the highest paid defensive player in the game because he hasn't earned that. But I got to think the Eagles aren't lowballing him to the point where, they're offering him, something that there's no way he's going to accept. I mean, the Eagles, for Howie Roseman's part, if anything, he overpays. He pays guys. I mean, the guys I mentioned Case Daniel, I can't get over that. Even Bradford, Zach Ertz, Lane Johnson, Vinnie Curry, they've all gotten pretty good deals without having. When none of them have ever made a Pro Bowl, right?
Right. I don't think the Eagles are lowballing Fletcher.
I don't either.
Let me ask you this. All right. So I've said I would not give him a deal where his salary cap hit was over I would ideally like it less than 10, but I'm probably willing to go up to 12. Not comfortably though.
I don't think the agent cares. I mean, that's for the Eagles to worry about cap.
But I know we're talking about if we were running the team and this is a move you would make. Where would you stop the number at for the salary cap? Because if they give him 60 guaranteed, The first year it might be a little lower, but I think a lot of the deals I've looked at for defensive tackles, the annual salary or the annual cap hit exceeds 16, 17 million, $18 million. So would you feel comfortable having Fletcher Cox take up $18 million worth of your salary cap
That's a
space?
lot. 18 is a little high. I wouldn't want to go size 18. I would go more than 10 though.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
I'm running
What would your number be?
12 to 14.
Okay.
But again, if
We're kind
I'm
of in the
running
same
Eagles,
ballpark.
I don't have the albatross of Sam Bradford and Chase Daniel on my salary cap either. So I have a lot of room.
You do at least this year.
But I wouldn't. I would never have
Right,
made
but we're talking about fixing the team from here on out. Like, I agree with you the Chase Daniel contract is bad.
Some
I
things
would
don't
not have
fit.
re-signed Bradford.
Well, that's why I
But
would just keep Cox this year. This year I say, Fletcher, you're playing for $8 million. Sorry, bud.
All right, so that's what you would do. And
So
I don't disagree that would be my second option. But
I mean, I'd like to get a
first
deal.
would be to see if I could get a good deal for him.
I would like to get a good deal done with him, but if it's not going to happen, he plays for $8 million this year, and we worry about next year.
So there's really the three plans. Then Elliot, you say trade him. Mark, you want to kind of wait till next year.
My plan is this: I'm keeping Carson Wentz. I'm keeping Fletcher Cox. Anybody else is fair game.
So if the Browns called you right now, and after your first round pick back and a second round pick, you would say no.
And I'd think about that. That's pretty.
Yeah, because he's just a defensive tackle.
That's stupid to say. He's just.
I don't think
it's like Brian Dawkins. That's like when Joe Banner would tell me Brian Dawkins is just a safety.
Okay, but
did Joe Banner really tell you that? Because that's ridiculous.
He said.
Right, let me ask you this though, and you can speak to this more than I can, because I watch Brian Dawkins play, but you covered him. Would you agree that he was more of a game changer than Fletcher Cox?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah. So that's my
All right. So
it's not.
But Fletcher Cox is still pretty darn good.
Do you think Fletcher Cox is a game changer?
Yeah, he can be. Back in a 4-3, yeah, he can be. I mean, Seth Joyner, who you know as well as I do now,
right?
You work with him a lot. I knew him as a player. Said today he's Jerome Brown. Well, Jerome Brown damn sure was a game changer.
Okay, do you think he's Jerome Brown?
Me personally, no, but I think I'll defer to Seth Joyner, who.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I respect Seth Joyner,
and was Jerome Brown's best friend. And played behind him for most of all of Jerome's career. When I hear somebody like Seth say that, I have to think maybe maybe Fletcher Cox is better than I think he's very good. Other people think he's great good. All I know is he's the best player on this team. And I don't think
you think he's going to win 4 games.
Yeah, because the offense stinks. If they have a bad head coach, and it's not his fault.
That's kind of my point. It's like. Why, if you can,
you build around him? You don't.
But that's my point. You shouldn't. My point is, and they have a quarterback now, so it's a bit of a different story.
We don't do that when they have a young guy that might be good.
I'm sorry. Well, yeah, I should say that they have a quarterback they want to build around. Like if Carson Wentz wasn't on the roster, I'd be even heavier into saying trade him, because then I think my follow-up would be next year you draft a quarterback high. You have a better chance of getting one. But they already have the quarterback to build around. Right. But you said build around Fletcher Cox. I don't think Fletcher Cox, because of the position he plays, is somebody you build around.
Well, who would you build around on defense? If not,
I don't think there's anybody on the defense worth building around right now. If you had a stud linebacker or
defensive linemen are more important than linebackers, especially in a 4-3.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, a shutdown corner.
This past draft, you could have any player in this past. Well, you already got Carson Wentz. San Diego calls you and says, "We'll give you Joey Bosa for Fletcher Cox." What do you say?
I can take any player in the past draft or Fletcher Cox.
Well, yeah, any team's gonna. You could Fletcher. Every team says we'll trade you the guy that we took for Fletcher Cox. Who you taking?
I know I have the Eagles roster. Like, I'm the Eagles.
Yeah. You're Howie Roseman. Okay. Somebody calls you and says, "Hey, you want to trade Fletcher Cox? We'll give you the guy that we just took in the first round."
I would trade him for Ezekiel Elliott.
Oh God! Why?
Hey,
he's a
because Ezekiel Elliott is at least going to.
You don't build around. And I like Ezekiel Elliott, but running back.
But Ezekiel Elliott's not going to cost me $18 million a year.
The cost factor. To me, that's the.
Obviously, the Eagles don't care about that. They overpaid everybody.
Right, but
But that
eventually you
doesn't mean
can't.
it's
You
the right
eventually
thing
you
to
can't
do.
overpay everybody, right? Like eventually this comes back to get you if you keep.
There's
I
ways.
like Fletcher Cox, and I think the Eagles, with the fact that Wentz will be their quarterback, I think makes it more likely they keep him because eventually Bradford's not going to be around, and eventually you could spend extra money on a kind of an off position because you'll have the quarterback on the rookie deal. I just
And your
wondered.
running back, you're not paying any running back any money either.
Right. I'm just saying to go back to end the Cox conversation. I think at some point it comes to a point where you say, is this not going to happen? Like I would make him an offer this summer, a real legitimate offer in the range that he probably thinks he's worth. And if he says no,
Well, right.
it would concern me because then you either have to go to free agency next year or franchise him. And then you're in the franchise tag just kills your cap for the next year. So I do think it's a story.
Yeah,
I
I'm
agree.
with you there. I don't want it to get ugly. If it gets ugly, then you have to do something.
Right. All right, Mark, give us a couple of your how would you improve the team? Give us a
Well,
couple of
here,
your
all right.
points.
My take is this on this team. No, I don't think they're going to be very good this year. I think they have a hope for the future with Carson Wentz. So what my plan is pretty simple. I go down the roster and I look at one number, date of birth. If you're born before 1987, you're available. I don't want anybody on this team that's 30 or more because by the time we're good, you're not going to be any good. So Darren Sproles, Jason Peters, Alan Barber, I got to move on. Get what I can, or just let them. This team has to get young. I mean, and they have gotten young in a lot of areas. But I just have to look. I can't worry about 20. And I think that's the problem the Eagles have right now. This is where my theory and their theory are so different. I think the Howie Roseman, Doug Peterson, that group, they think they can win this year. And maybe they're right and I'm wrong, but I think they're looking at this year as we can win the NFC East and we can be in the playoffs and we can do this, and I don't see it. So my plan is looking ahead to 2017, and everything I do this year is geared toward 2017, which is why I want to move on from Bradford, why I want to get Carson Wentz in there now. Because let's be honest, if Wentz doesn't play this year, then next year's a bad year too, because then he's a rookie. He's basically a rookie. So that year's not going to be. You wouldn't expect him to come. I mean, hey, anything's possible, but I'd rather him have some experience going into 2017. And again, with the defense, I want Fletcher Cox. I want him signed, sealed, happy, the leader of my defense, putting some guys like Vinny Curry around him, and just move on and get young and good, get young and better, and whatever. I mean, I wish I had that pick next year, but that's I can't do nothing. I can't do anything about that. So
You could trade Fletcher Cox.
and then I opened another big hole in the defense.
Nah, I'm just kidding.
Let me ask you guys this, because just to go off your point, Mark, and I think we've touched on this before, that it almost feels like the Eagles franchise is trying to fast forward to 2017, but 2016 has to happen. How do you guys, and each of you, I mean, Mark, you've been covering the team for longer than Elliot. You've been around the team through different eras, winning and losing. Elliot, obviously, we all interact with fans differently and in different ways, but all the time. I want to get both of your perspectives on how do you think the fan base would react if the Eagles basically did what I think both of you were saying in different ways, which is forget 2016 and do everything you can to get this team ready to start winning in 2017 and 2018. Like, football fans don't usually, because it's such a short season and usually teams could compete right away or have surprise years. Like baseball fans in Philadelphia, they're kind of okay with this. Basketball fans in Philadelphia have been really okay with this for years. How do you think Eagles fans would handle it if the team followed either of your plans, which I think is basically the same thing? Don't worry so much about this year. Set the team up for the next couple years. Do you think Elliott fans would be okay with it? Or when the team was 3-8 because of this, they'd be pissed?
I think they would be okay with it, and part of the reason is, or a small part I should say, but I do think the fact that in the same city you have the Sixers that did the same thing, and there's been so much debate. And, I know the portion of people that really support the Sixers, they're probably all Eagles fans, but it's a lot different than the core of the Eagles fans, which is
Right.
just a different group of people. But, I mean, I would just say, I think because there's been so much debate about how you rebuild and all that, I think it wouldn't be such a foreign concept to them. But, I mean, I honestly think it would have a lot to do with the quarterback position. I think if they said, if they, they're never going to say we're, rebuilding. But if they started Carson Wentz, I don't think it really matters what they do around him. Now, if you start to sell off pieces, like trade Jason Peters or trade Darren Sproles and, do things like that, and then you still have Sam Bradford, then I think there could be some frustration because it'll be play the rookie, play the rookie, play the rookie. But I think as long as Wentz is playing this year, they could go 2-14 or whatever, and I think people will at least be interested in seeing him play every year. Now, if Wentz plays 16 games and they're really, really bad, then I think there could be some debate about if Wentz is really good, and you can debate whether that's even fair. But whatever. I just don't think there'd be any backlash of them not being a good team if Carson Wentz is playing.
Yeah, I'm with that's the best thing you said all day. No, I agree 100%. If Wentz starts, even if he doesn't start opening day, but he's in there sooner than everyone expects, I don't think the fans will give Carson Wentz every excuse, every second chance, whatever words you want to use. He can lose games. He's a rookie. I mean, talk to a Tennessee Titan fan if you can find one. Call
Chip Kelly,
Nashville, Knoxville, and find. I mean, the Titans were the worst team in football last year, right? But they're happy. They have Marcus Mariota. They see a future, a quarterback. They're okay. They know that they're going to get better. They got to put some pieces around them now, but they got their quarterback. Tampa Bay, they weren't very good last year, but they have their quarterback. They know that problem one is solved. Same with the Eagles. If the Eagles are 3-9 with Sam Bradford, there'll be people will not be happy. Or even if Bradford plays the whole year and they go 4-12, 5-11, no, that's a waste of time, waste of year, waste of ticket money. Because if you're going to lose, if you're going to be bad, be young and bad, because then you might get better.
My only counter to what Mark said about trading players that are older, and I'm okay with it, and I would probably do it. My only counter would be okay, Darren Sproles, I would trade for anything, just because I don't think losing him impacts the roster whatsoever. Jason Peters, I mean, if someone gave me a 6th or 7th round pick, I don't think I would do it, just because I don't think they have a capable, even a remotely capable backup. So while I agree with the concept of your plan, there are certain positions where I'm just I don't want to get Carson Wentz killed.
Right? He's the only one.
Yeah, he's probably the only. Yeah, he probably is the only one.
You know what? Though? What are you going to do what are you going to do then when he breaks down in week 4?
Well, but at least right.
Done.
But I'm just saying,
Jason Peters is done.
So I don't think that as much.
Anybody that thinks Jason is going to play 16 games is fooling himself.
No, he's not going to play 16 games, but I think he can play at a higher level than he did last year.
I don't. He's a year older with more injury. I've seen.
So what would be your price tag for Jason Peters?
Whatever I can get, highest bidder.
And then Lane Johnson plays left tackle. Is that the way it would work?
Yep.
You would do it even if it was for a conditional 7th. You just want him off the roster.
I don't want that. That's embarrassing. Give me a young linebacker. Give me a guy that I think on your roster that isn't maybe not even starting for you, but I like him. He's young. He's 23 years old, and I can at least maybe I think I can coach him up and he'd be good. Give me a young corner, a young linebacker, a young offensive lineman, a young anything.
Okay. Yeah, that makes more sense. My only point was I just think they have nobody whatsoever behind him.
Stuff. They didn't.
They tried. They drafted the two guys. They did the guy at TCU and the guy from Oregon State. I just don't think either of them are good. So
the guy from Oregon State isn't a tackle. He's a center or a guard.
No, yeah. Although Howie will tell you he played all 5 positions and did fine against DeForest Buckner in college.
Oh yeah, did you quote from the scout?
I know. I'm just saying. I agree he's not a tackle. I'm just saying they tried to address the offensive line. I just don't think they did.
Well, they did. They just didn't address tackle right away. I would have. That would be. I'm just worried that Jason Peters isn't going to make it through the year, and they're going to have to find somebody anyway. So
I think we're on the same page. I would want a bit more of a price tag for him. It sounds like maybe than you would, but I think we're on.
I don't want a conditional bad pick. No, that's embarrassing. That would be embarrassing for him, for me, for everybody. Right. Give me a player. I want a player from him. I want a younger player.
The hard part would be finding a team that's willing to give you a valuable young player for him because of all the reasons you just mentioned.
Guy was in your mind because he's not. If a team, it only takes one team. If one team still thinks Jason Peters has, and they're desperate for offensive line help, and they think they can win this year, You might get something.
It'd probably have to be the right situation, right? Like a team needs a left tackle. They still think Peters could play, and they might have a guy buried on their depth chart at another position that you might like that's younger, and maybe they'd be able to partner. All right, let's wrap with this before we end episode 39 here of our show. Here, give me a player. Each of you, give me one player on this team that can improve the Eagles for this year, because I think both your plans are kind of long-term, right? Like how to improve the Eagles in the long term for this year. If the Eagles are going to surprise or be better than all three of us think, because I don't think any of us right now have them probably with a winning record, give me one player that the Eagles have to get more out of, or more out of than they've given so far, like a guy that has to break out type of thing. And if this guy does that, maybe the Eagles are better this year than we think.
All right, Mark, I'll let you go first because we just talked about my guy. So go ahead.
I don't know who your guy is.
My guy's Jason Peters.
God.
All right, Jason Peters.
All right, here's why. Here's why I'll explain why. Because I think if he plays really well, it changes the whole complexion of the offensive line. And I think if the offensive line is really good, the Eagles could make the playoffs. So my guy would be Jason Peters.
Do you think he is though?
No, but Joe said if there was one guy that has to have a really good season for the Eagles to be good this year, I think it's Jason Peters.
Oh, well, but is it who we think or who has? I'll say Sam. Going off that, I'll say Sam Bradford.
That makes sense, right?
But my counter to that would be I think Bradford has never played at a level where he can be a game changer. Whereas,
that was, again, what's the question? What do I think, or what am I hoping for, so to speak? Because if Bradford has a great year, the Eagles will be good. Well, I don't think that's going to
I disagree with that. But go ahead.
Well, you disagree with what?
I think if Bradford plays very good, I still don't think they're a playoff team. Whereas I think if the offensive line, like they run the ball really well and Bradford doesn't have to do as much, then I think they can
run the ball with whom?
Wendell Smallwood. Come on, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, the best running back from last year, Darren Sproles.
If Sam, I don't think this has a chance of happening, but if Sam Bradford throws 35 touchdowns and 5 interceptions and throws for 4,400 yards and puts up crazy, they're going to be good. I don't care what anybody.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, our two are intertwined because
that's why I wasn't going that way. I was going to tell you a guy I think could have a good year that month, and that's Jordan Hicks. I think if Jordan Hicks can stay healthy,
that's a good one,
and be the middle linebacker that he showed he has capabilities of being in the short span of time he played last year, that can make the defense a lot better.
Sure.
And that was my thing with Sam Bradford is I don't think either of us think it's even possible he'll play. And whereas I think there's a better chance Jason Peters plays where everyone goes like, wow, he's playing way better than I thought. Like then they're so intertwined. But
Peters can turn the clock back.
Yeah, I'm hoping Peters. I think if Peters can play at the level he did just even 2 years ago, which is a long time in the NFL, I just think if he can play at the level he did even 2 years ago, then I think the offensive line will be really. I think all the other pieces fall into place.
What you're saying, I can't disagree with. And I like Jason Peters as a guy, but I think his time is. I mean, the one guy that's undefeated is Father Time. Father Time is ready to take Jason Peters down.
And Sam Bradford,
Well, certainly looked like it last year. Certainly looked like last year with Jason Peters. All right, guys. So we'll be back next week, and we'll debate more about the Eagles as we head towards the summer. Elliot, as always, thanks for doing this.
Yep, no problem.
Thanks, Mark.
Save Fletcher Cox.
That's the title of this episode. Save Fletcher Cox. We appreciate you guys listening. We'll be back next week. If you like the show, you can rate us on iTunes. It helps the show grow. You can download on Stitcher, iTunes. We're now on iHeartRadio, SoundCloud. Any way you want to listen, you can listen to the No Huddle Show right here on NJ.com. Thanks for listening.